I will say I feel a little weird up here. I wanted to come down there, but I'm sure the optics are better up here. Because I am people centric, I like to be as close to people as I can. I, I'm going to be talking to you today about transitioning, which sounds like a fake name for quitting a job or leaving a job, all the bad stuff. Homo sapiens, humans, us, we hate change. We are wired to hate change. And the biggest change of all, the granddaddy of them all, is ends, the ending of things. We all hate endings. And why do we hate endings? It's because endings subconsciously remind us of our mortality. So ending anything is not fun. Um, ending, even ending school years. I don't know about you, but when I left college, I mourned and grieved leaving college because it was one of the most fun times of my life. At the time, I didn't look forward to, hey, what I'm going to be doing is starting a career. Or actually, I went to graduate school, but I hated that ending. We hate, um, we hate April 15th because it's the end of the tax year. Or for corporations, it's March 15th. It's the end of the tax year. And oh my gosh, we're going to have to pay things. The ultimate ending, of course, is death. And that's something we all don't look forward to. But there's also ending of businesses. How many of you either own a business or are thinking about owning a business? Okay. Well, one of the things that as you start your business, you should also figure out how you're going to end it. And that's not any fun. Is it something that I did? Well, no, I didn't. I'm a planner and I plan everything. So as I was starting my business, a business of 35 years, I knew that I needed to plan some things. I needed to come up with a business plan. I need to lay out where I was going to go with the business, what I was going to do, what kinds of clients I was going to get. But I never thought about the end because, after all, we don't like endings. I'm human just like everybody else. I did find after about the fourth year being in business with a business partner that not only not planning the end of the business would have been a good idea, but planning the end of a partnership. So when you go into a marriage, for example, or any relationship, you don't plan the end of it. You don't think about the end of it. And it's the same with a business. But one of the things that when people come to me and say, could you help me figure out how to start my business? What are the things I need to do? What are some of the suggestions? So along with all the stuff like strategic planning and finding a place to have the business and what kind of clients are you going to go after? Um, what's the business sector? Also, how are you going to end the business? So have any of you come up with your exit strategy? I didn't. I didn't because frankly, I didn't I hadn't planned for success. I did plan for enjoying my career, taking care of the people, doing good work, using my education, having a good time. All those things I planned, but I never planned how I was going to leave it. So after 3 or 4 years, when my business partner said, I think I'm going to leave, we didn't have anything in place. Now, right now, I'm talking to you about all the negative things and the bad stuff. I will get to some of the suggestions and ideas for how to transition from your business because endings can be good. I operated my business after my business partner left, which ended up being like a divorce because we had no plans in place for how that partnership would end. After operating the business for 35 years, I left the business. And 10 years prior to that, I started thinking about, what if I'm hit by a Tecate beer truck? What if a bus runs over me? What's going to happen to the business? So I'm telling you about the mistakes that I made in the hopes that it will spur some ideas for you on what to do with your business and how to end it. So I never worried about growth. I was in the business, as I said, to have a good time, to use my degree, and to provide a living for people that came to work for me and to do good work. Well, I'm one of those accidental entrepreneurs that because I had good people always around me, we ended up being pretty successful. And so by the time we reached $1 million in sales, I started thinking, oh my gosh, what happens? What's going to happen to the business? Not what's going to happen to me, but what's going to happen to the business and the people that work with me if I am hit by that beer truck? And we continue to grow. I put it to the back of my mind, just like things that we don't like to think about. I shoved it to the back and didn't think about it. And the business continued to flourish. And we changed and grew from residential company to a commercial company, from design build to primarily maintenance. And we grew and then we grew. So one of the pieces of advice that I've already mentioned is to, as long as while you're planning your business, while you're growing your business, if not doing something actively, start thinking about what an exit might look like. What do you want from your business? I've heard people tell me, I want my legacy to live on. And so then I do some questioning around that. What do you mean? What is your legacy? What does that mean to you? Well, that's also touching back to the fact that we don't like to think about our mortality. Something that we have built, I didn't want it to go away. I wanted it to continue too. So along with your growth strategy, and it's not something that you have to talk about to anybody else other than a business partner or a relationship partner. It's not something you have to talk about to everybody, although I did sort of joke with my staff and say, when I'm hit by a beer truck, here's what might happen. But really, I didn't have a clue. So I'm just saying to you to prepare your business plan and review it, and also your exit strategy. Why now? Why do it now when you're having fun? That's what I couldn't figure out of myself. I thought, what the heck? Why do I need to figure out my exit strategy? Because this is so much fun. I will never leave this industry that I love. I'm going to be here till I die. But then what? Then what? So why do it now? Do it when it's not emotional. Because when it comes to a time where you start thinking about, oh my gosh, I've got to leave. I have a sick parent. I have a sick child. I've lost my pizzazz. I've lost my love of the industry. I've run out of money. Whatever it is, for whatever reason, plan it now so that you're not emotionally tied to it. The main thing I didn't want to happen was that I would be hit by the proverbial truck, and then my family would have to deal with it. And so it was when I had a parent die, and I had to deal with, not had to deal with, but I dealt with all of his estate, that I realized this is a burden on people that love you to have to think about what to do with this company. So in 1999, we were at about 10 million in sales and many, many more employees. And I felt very responsible for the employees and their livelihoods. Of course, they could go out and get another job, but I felt it was important for them and also for my family. So do it when it's not emotional. My story was that I started the business in 1981 with a business partner, and $2,000 in the bank and a rickety old janky truck that ran some days. And then when by the 25th year, I knew that we were at about 25 million in sales. That's when I said, okay, girl, you got to get serious about this exit strategy. Because what has been built by this group of incredible employees is just going to get bigger. And so I knew that I had to do something. Another reason to do it is, I don't know if, are any of you control freaks? You like to be in control? Oh, it's the women? Oh, come on, dudes. Come on, dudes. Okay, another control freak. Whether we admit it or not, if we own a business, part of it's because we kind of like to run the show. All the type D personalities in the DISC assessment. So it's the ultimate control. It's your business. It's your success. It's your exit. And for most people, it's your money. And it's not tacky to say, I'd like to get something out of this. At my exit, I'd like to take some cash with me because I put blood, sweat, and tears into this. And that's only fair. There's nothing ugly about money. So that's important too. But ultimately, you're in control. So let's talk about some options for exiting. I will say that I took almost 10 years to come up with what I thought might be palatable for me. I went through all the options, and we'll talk about some of that. I went through all the options. And I think all of them, for me, were sad because yes, I know I need to do this, but this exit strategy means I need to leave. I need to leave people I love. I need to leave clients I love. And I need to leave an industry that I love. And I really did. I don't use the word love lightly. I really did love it all and still do. But some of the options are during this emotional time, and in that 10 years was emotional for me, investigating different options, going down the list. What can I do? How can I exit from this business? My ideal was exit and leave it intact. It's growing, and I want it to continue to grow. I want to continue for the business to take care of the people that work there and to take care of the clients that have come to trust me. So it took 10 years. I'm not saying it's going to take anybody else 10 years, but I was in denial a lot of the time. But from time to time, it would come up, and I'd think, oh, I need to go investigate that. Or I would go to a conference and hear about, oh, here's an option. Let me investigate that. And so then I'd go down that, and I won't call it a rabbit hole, but I'd go down that path of finding out everything I needed to find out for that particular option. And that's what I suggest for you, is learn what the options are and then put them into your plan. And of course, your plan can change. Mine did, for sure. So you can die with your boots on. And for a while, that was my idea. Oh, what the hell? I'm just going to let the beer truck hit me and I'll let everybody else figure it out. But then the part of me that loved the people said, I can't do that. I can't do that to them. But that's certainly an option. I would say if you're going to do that, be sure and have a will. Just like you have a will, have something in writing for an exit plan for your company and what you want done with it. Even if it's not a legal document, have something that you leave for, and I'm sorry if this sounds morbid, it's not, but it's because I'm a planner. But have something in writing for someone that says, here's what I would like to happen. Don't just, well, I guess you could. Don't just die with your boots on. You can shut it down. That was the advice that an attorney gave to me when my business partner came to me and said, I want to leave and I want X dollars for my interest in the company. And at that time I said, there's nothing to buy. I mean, we had our one janky truck still, but then we had two more. Okay, so we've got two trucks. We don't own any property. We've got some plants out in the back. We've got some contracts, but it's not anything. And so I hired an attorney, and he said, just shut it down. That's a smart thing to do. And I said, I can't do it. I've got employees that depend on a paycheck. Yes, they can go get new jobs, but I've also got clients and contracts, and I feel obligated to these people. I feel obligated to the people that work for me. I feel obligated to the people that trust me and trust our services. And yes, we have written contracts, but my word is my bond. So I can't do that. But that's an option. You could just shut it down. You could wake up tomorrow and say, I'm not doing this anymore. And you could go through all the things you need to do to sell off property, to sell off assets, and just go on your merry way. It is the easiest thing to do. It's not comfortable, but it's the easiest. And there is no money that comes out of it unless what you do is you sell off some assets that you have. That's the only money. But I think most of us are hoping for more. You can pass it on to your kids. Now, that's always a sticky situation because for all of these things that I'm suggesting to you, there are pros and there are cons. There are advantages, there are disadvantages that maybe for one of you would be different than somebody else. So I can't say this would be the best idea for you, or having your kids come into the business would be the best idea. I asked all of my children, do you want to own this business someday? And the answers were all no across the board. One said, oh no, Mom, I don't want to work that hard. Okay, that's unequivocal no. I'll take that. But some people may have children that are interested in the business. That too requires paperwork and understanding, and there are pluses and there are minuses. I have a friend that passed his business on to his son. He's the one that told me he wanted his legacy to live. His legacy is living, because when he asked me, how do I maintain my legacy? I said, well, your son is your legacy. And at that time, his son wasn't in his business. And he said, oh, I never thought about bringing him in. But some children want to, some children don't. Some children are very young. They're, maybe teenagers. They're not ready for it. They may be toddlers and they're not ready for it. And you want to get out in 5 years. But that's an option. If that is an option, it's something your children want to do, be sure and put everything in writing. And the disadvantages can be that mom or dad is the boss and the kids are the kids, and they are never able to come into their own while you are there as the owner. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just one of the things to think about. You can sell to an outside company or a competitor. That is always an option. With a competitor or someone in your market, there can be difficulties in merging cultures, company cultures. These are just things to look out for. There can be difficulties or challenges in operating in the same market, and that you've been competitors and now it's not going to work or not work as well, and there are conflicts. So again, it's communicating and ironing everything out before you sign the paperwork. You can sell to an employee. That was one of my thoughts, was, I have some great employees, I can sell to the employees. The value of the company and having your company valued every 5 years is not a bad idea, so you know where you stand. But I knew that none of my employees had the kind of money to buy me out. So I would have loved that. And I always had that in the back of my mind. I think that's what I'd like to do. I think I'd like to just turn it over to the employees. What if I walk away and they just keep paying me money and buy me out over time? Well, then if the company doesn't perform as well, and when I plan things, I like to have everything nailed down. Another idea, and this is actually what I did, was to form an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan. It's also sometimes called employee stock option plan. And that's what I did. And because I wanted the employees to be owners of the company and I wanted it to happen over time, it was a tool that I knew I could use to turn the employees over to turn the company over to the employees, for me to cash out the value that I wanted, and also stay on for a bit if I wanted. I knew it would be structured. I knew, because the government controls ESOPs to a large extent, I knew that it would be legal, above board. No one would have any questions about it. I will say that along the way, someone did come to me during that time when I was exploring ESOPs. They came to me and said, "We'd like to buy you out." And I got to the point of the papers were ready to sign, and I just knew in my gut I couldn't do it. I thought, I'm exploring this ESOP, and I just have a feeling that that might be the way to go, and not sell to another big company, because I still wanted to have control. There are positives and negatives to an ESOP. The advantages of an ESOP: the employees now own the company. The employees own the company. I became an employee of the company that I founded, and that felt good. Everything stayed the same, except the employees now own the company. The productivity went up. Job satisfaction went up. So I'll just give you general numbers. In the first 25 years of business, we went from 0 to 25 million in sales. In the next 10 years, we doubled it. And it was for many reasons, but the ESOP had 80% to do with that, because now the employees own the company. It's a good exit strategy for owners. It's not for every company. There are tax advantages. ESOPs pay no income tax. I'm not talking about the individuals, I'm talking about the corporation. Because it's a government-controlled plan and all the money goes back into the company for the benefit of the employees, there are no federal income tax ever paid. You attract top talent and retention. People, I believed, and they did, like working for a company that's employee-owned. Our staff liked it. Our customers liked it. This wasn't always true, but their idea was that, oh, if that employee that's out trimming my shrubs is an owner of the company, he's going to do a better job. I would say yes, productivity was better, attitudes were better. Not everybody understood the value of ownership. I mean, some people were just there for a job. There was no changing in governance. Day one, you operate just the same as you do as the day before you signed ESOP papers. Employees earn shares commensurate with their salary and their tenure. So a lot of other options, like a work co-op or some other employee-owned kind of scenarios, all employees also can vote. ESOPs, there are no voting rights. They can't vote to, we're going to change the name of the company. We're going to change the company colors. We're not going to do commercial work anymore. It's the leaders of the company are still the leaders of the company. The ESOP is controlled by trustees that are usually within the company. And so there's a trust set up. That's what happens. There's a trust that's set up, and that operates the ESOP. I mean, it's invisible. It's part of the paperwork. Now, the downside is that there's a lot of paperwork because the government oversees the operation of, and there are reports that are filed to so there's a lot of paperwork. But I didn't see that as a disadvantage. Some of the disadvantages that some employees may see is that there are no voting rights. Oh, I own the company, so I can decide if we're going to have a 3-day work week now, or I'm going to double my salary. They don't have any kind of voting rights. The governance is still the same as it always has been. There's no decision making. It is highly structured. By highly structured, things don't change from day one to day two on how the company is run, but yet there are government deadlines for filings, and yeah, it's very structured. You do have, as part of an ESOP, the ability to set rules. Just like when you set up a 401k, you can set vesting schedules. You can say that somebody starts earning shares on day 366 or day 700 and whatever the double of that is, 20 something. You can set up the rules as part of the initial paperwork. How much, the vesting schedule, when stock certificates are issued. There are a lot of small things that you make the decisions on, just like a 401k. Not everybody gets it. An ESOP is, it's not money that goes into their paycheck every month. It goes into an account for them and is held until they exit the company, either through retirement or quitting. And so ownership, it's the long game. An ESOP is the long game of ownership. It's not immediate. So a lot of people don't get it. Well, what do you mean I'm an owner? I'm not seeing any more of my paycheck. I'm not deciding if I come to work or don't come to work. But once they get their first stock certificate, and we always made a big deal of it. Stock certificate distribution day was a big deal. And we had signs and banners everywhere, employee-owned company, on our trucks, everything. But when they got that first certificate and they saw the dollar value of their ownership, it started meaning something. And for those that left and cashed out, were able to buy homes for the first time, or land. One person bought some acreage. Some of them bought big screen TVs and trucks, but you know, that's kind of what happens. And it does take time to administer. It does. So that's ESOP. Something that's happened, let's see, I guess it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, Forbes magazine said this is the decade of the ESOP because more companies are becoming employee owned. So what's happened is there are some private equity companies that now have gotten into the business. So let me put a pin in that for just a moment. ESOPs are not good for very small companies because it does take a lot of time and effort to administer. And don't ask me what very small is, but small companies. But now private equity companies have come in, and there's several of them. You can Google mid-market ESOPs, middle market ESOPs, and you'll find companies that they come in, and it's usually for smaller companies where there is an owner involved that wants to retire. And by retirement doesn't mean what it used to mean 10 or 20 years ago, but wants to leave the company, wants to leave ownership. Private equity company will come in and buy the owner out, will put a corporate administrator, a president in place in the company, and then over time, the employees are bought out over time. Employees earn stock just like they would in an ESOP. So the money is coming. Whereas if you set up an ESOP on your own, You have to go to a bank and borrow the money, puts the company in debt for that amount of money, pays you out, and then the company owns that. That's a regular ESOP. These private equity companies or middle market ESOPs, they come in and they fund the, well, I'll call it retirement of the owner, the exit of the owner. They fund it, and the owner stays on for a while and then leaves, and the company continues, and the people earn stock over time. So it's a really nice hybrid. They're also called hybrid ESOPs. So it's a really nice option. The another option, we're going to leave ESOPs for a minute, and I stayed on that for a while because since that's what I did, that's what I know. Mergers, you can merge with other companies, and that may be not the same as buying out, but it could be an agreement whereby you merge with another company, again, having all the paperwork, everything ironed out, every what if possible, every possible thing that could go wrong in writing so that when the time comes, it's taken care of. But you can do a merger. Legal assistance is always necessary for any of these documents that are set up. Always need an attorney. Lots of details to work out. With a merger, sometimes balance of power can be difficult, just like a partnership. Who's really in charge? Who does what? And sometimes you don't see those things come up until they come up. So strategies for a smooth exit, no matter what it is. Because I've been around for a while, I've seen the exit of a lot of owners of companies. And sadly, most of the time, it's not very pretty. A lot of it has to do with lack of communication, lack of transparency. I've heard this several times, but most recently, one story, the owner told the staff one day, "Hey, I've sold the company." And the next day, the new owners came in. And everybody's scared. What's going to happen to me? What does this mean for me? And I don't know how many times staff has heard, "Oh, nothing's going to change." And that's when I hear that, that's so sad, because sometimes maybe things don't change, but oftentimes they do. And a lot of that has to do with due diligence up front. We purchased a company, a fairly large company, before I left, and transparency and conversations and just being available and telling ahead of time, 6 months ahead, this is what's going to happen. A year ahead, this is what's going to happen. Here's what's going to change. Here's what you've been doing that we love, and so we're going to keep doing it. And communication was the key to everything, and transparency. So one mistake is not enough communication. You can't over communicate. I didn't care if people heard me say every day, "Let's sit down and talk. I want to know what you're thinking. What are your concerns about this purchase that we were making? Or what are your concerns about the ESOP?" Because frankly, most of our staffs don't trust us. And it's not because of what we've done, it's because of past experience. So start planning early. When you plan early, so 3 years before I knew the ESOP was going to happen, I started investing in company culture. I mean, company culture was always important to me, but doing everything possible for employees to know how important they were. Having documentation for everything so that people were not guessing what needed to happen or what was going to happen. Optimizing all the processes. And then most importantly of all, before transferring or before becoming an ESOP, was in knowing what the value of the company was. I wanted to get the value as high as possible. So I hired, do all of you know Kevin Kehoe that recently passed away? We had Kevin come in for 3 years. And at that time, I hadn't decided I was going to go with the ESOP. I just knew I needed to have an exit strategy in place. And so I wanted to optimize our revenue, because when our revenue was optimized and our profits were optimized, then the employees had more money in their paychecks too. So that by the time it came to do the final paperwork for the ESOP, the value was high and they would have high stock values going into their portfolio. So plan ahead, company culture, optimize processes, and then optimize your revenue and profitability, even more importantly. Whenever you transition a company, be sure your leadership is top notch. The old bad apple thing, there's no room for bad apples in a transition. In a transition, they only take companies down. They're the ones that, if there hasn't been enough communication, if there hasn't been enough transparency, they're going to be the ones that stir the pot. They'll be the ones out in the shop getting the crews all excited about, oh, they're selling the company and we're going to get screwed. So be sure staff is where they need to be and leadership is where it needs to be. And make yourself, during that 3-year period or 5-year period, make yourself replaceable. I always told my staff that I wanted to be completely dispensable. I didn't want them to need me anymore. And they'd laugh, oh, ha, 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 ha. We could never do without you. And I said, yes, you can. And so as we had 10 branches, I had to be irrelevant, because those branches needed to run on their own, to all be profitable, to all be in the best place they could be. And they were. By the time we became an ESOP, and as I told you, that once we became an ESOP and we doubled our revenue, it was like a springboard for success. That was the icing on the cake. But everything was in place. Culture was in place. Operations were in place, and leadership was in place. So I was replaceable. I look at all my failures, were actually just opportunities to make changes. I looked at my options. I considered all the options, and I dismissed them as I knew they weren't going to work for me. Is this something that I could live with? Is this something I know the employees could live with? Is this something that I know my clients could live with? And where do you begin? You start by thinking about it and thinking, I think at age X, I'd like for my company to be on its own and running on its own. And that may be a matter of, as I have one friend that has a company that just runs on his own, and he just continues to draw a paycheck. But I didn't consider my company as my children, but just like children, you give them roots and then you give them wings. So I knew they were ready to fly. So after 8 years of being an ESOP, I knew I was so dispensable that I would show up for branch meetings. I had nothing to say. They had no questions of me. They had it all in hand. And so it was time. I knew it was time to leave. And so I gave everybody a lot of notice. It's all you now. I'm not going to be coming into the office every day anymore. It's all you. So it was good. It was good. I would suggest don't leave less than 3 years, though. If right now you're within 3 years of when you want to exit or transition, then start now. Start now. And where do you begin? You just begin by Googling everything, calling people, going to conferences, talking to people that have exited, what worked for you, what didn't work for you, looking at past history, look at some of the purchases that have been done in the past. And is that what, and tracking those, is that what you want or is it not what you want? Because you are in control. You're in total control. This is your company, your success, and your money. So, do we have a little bit of time for questions? If anybody has any questions, and if I say now or even after, if you come up to me, well, it depends. It does. It depends. Not one size fits all, and not one opportunity is the same for everybody. So anyway, no question? Well, good. Well, thank you for your interest and your attention. And you're in the best place you could be right now. Thank you.